A big thank you to Macport and their product Clean My Mac for supporting this week's episode of the Edition podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Edition podcast. I am, as ever, your host, Charlotte Henry, and joining me this time once again is my friend and maybe yours, James Ball. Hello, James.
Hi there, lovely to be back.
Thrilled to have you back. James is, of course, well, a man of many skills and positions even, but he is mainly the political editor at not just the New European anymore, but the New World. You've gone into the New World.
We expanded, yes. We thought everyone likes it when England expands into the New World, don't they?
Brilliant. So, yes, that's the rebranded New European. How's all that going?
It's going well, actually. It's I have to say, I still really like the redesign. Going from the New European, obviously, it started as a Brexit pop-up newspaper. And
it was only there for 4 weeks, wasn't it?
It was only going to be there for 4 weeks.
Nearly a decade later.
You know, it had the sort of design forethought of something that you throw together for 4 weeks. And so changing to the New World, they actually did things like work out a design and a layout and templates. And so it actually looks really beautiful now. So it's quite nice, actually. The website looks better, of course, but seeing the print product now is actually quite a treat, and I haven't got used to the new look yet, so I enjoy that.
So you write at least one political column a week, don't you, now there?
I do a magazine feature every week and at least one online piece, so they keep me busy.
As they should. And one of those pieces has sort of led us to the story I want to start with today. We have a few bits to discuss, but I want to talk about. Well, this is a slightly bizarre one because I don't really cover politics here, not in the pure form. But we have to talk about Reform, the insurgent right-wing party led by Nigel Farage. And, well, they're not a fan of you, James.
They are not a fan of me.
That. But let's pause and go back to the start of the story. Nigel Farage and Reform always advocate themselves as defenders of free speech. This has included things like speaking out against the online safety bill in the UK, which is a topic I want to talk about with you because I know you've covered it quite closely. And it's included lots of things. So they've been very clear on on their free speech stance. I should also say Nigel Farage, when he does his many, many media appearances, tends to be quite good at taking questions. He's there for a very long time, taking things from all sorts of different papers and publications and news outlets, and always seems quite open about it. And yet, James, pick up the story from here.
Yes, Reform has had quite a strange week on free speech. We'll come to some of it later, I'm sure, but they had Lucy Connolly on stage, who, of course, said to burn down all of the asylum hotels and went to prison for that.
She tweeted that, didn't she?
Yes, she did, and attacked the Online Safety Act and then welcomed the author of the Online Safety Act, Nadine Dorries, into their party and onto their stage at the same event.
Former Culture, Media and Sports Secretary.
Yes. A little before that, they had Nigel Farage flew all the way over to the USA to say how much he loved free speech and how much it was under threat in the US. And I was just gearing up to cover that. I had my video link already, etc. And I got an email from Reform withdrawing my credentials to attend their party conference. Which is a little bit bizarre because I had applied all the way back in May. Their requirement for media credentials was that you have a UK press card, which I have, that you're from a sort of published outlet, which I am. And everything had been successfully registered. I was told I was approved. I was just waiting for my QR code. And then I got a 2-line email from the press office saying my credentials had been declined, exactly as Nigel Farage went to show off how much he loves free speech.
Do we have an explanation as to why?
They have offered absolutely no explanation as to why. They have been contacted by me for it. They have been asked live on the BBC about it. Sarah Pochin was asked and just claimed to know nothing about it. Nigel Farage was asked about refusing credentials to journalists while under oath at Congress, and said never in 25 years had he done it, but maybe someone else in the party had done it.
Right.
My editor-in-chief texted Farage to ask him about it, got nothing. I messaged Richard Tice about it, the deputy leader of Reform, who he and I have DM'd on several occasions in the past, and he blocked
You've slipped
my
into
ability.
Richard Tice's DMs.
Yes, of course I have. And he blocked my ability to DM when I suggested, hey, I hear David Bull, your chair, saying on stage that you are free speech champions. Does that mean I can come in then? I'm just outside because I went to the conference anyway. And I just got blocked from replying. So they're not only snowflakes in terms of not letting in a critical journalist, and they are snowflakes in terms of they won't even own the decision.
It's quite bizarre. And I am slightly taken aback just because, as I say, I'm trying to be fair. Look, as listeners and readers of mine can well gather, I am. My politics is not that of the Reform parties, I think it's fair to say. But I try and be fair, and Farage is very good at taking a wide range of questions. But to not let you into the conference as a journalist is a bizarre, as you point out, a very legitimately credentialed journalist is a bizarre approach, just because it seems almost self-defeating. And listeners might be thinking, why are you spending this time discussing, going up to Birmingham to cover the conference? Why are you two talking about not going to cover a party that has, 4, 5 MPs? I lose track of who's quit and who's...
Yes, I think they're on 4 at the moment, but this, depending whether you count a suspended MP or not. But I mean, they are polling ahead of any other party. This
is the point. They're leading the polls. Yes, the Liberal Democrats have 72 MPs. They're the third party compared to Reform's 4/5/ how many, depends on the day. But as you rightly say, Reform are topping the polls. Farage is widely considered to have a real chance of becoming the next Prime Minister. This is not like, say, the Green Party, where they only have a couple of MPs but are very much not going to be forming a government in any way. They're just not polling at that level. So it does matter holding Reform to account. As it happens, I don't think the media is doing a very good job in the way it covers Reform, and I might write something on this at another point. But it is important to go to the conferences, see how things are emerging. We're 4 years away from a general election, so they don't have to present a manifesto to you yet, but it's important to work out how this party is growing, and they have stopped you doing that.
Yeah, they want to say that they are a serious party of government, that, right. Farage wants you to think he could be Prime Minister, he could run the country. He is not just somewhere to dump a protest vote anymore. And that means we know their policy on immigration. They're quite clear on it. It's very, very different from what Farage has pushed his whole career. Like, Farage has moved a long way to the right on that issue, but he's traditionally been a right-wing libertarian.
Right.
And the party he's trying to lead now is a lot more socially conservative. A lot of the voters they're attracting are a lot more left-wing. And so, the line that they were saying at parties, we want to be the next government and we think we'll be in government by 2027, not 2029.
Yes, I've seen Farage say, he was asked at one press conference that I watched, and he said, do you really think this parliament is going to last 4 years? Another 4 years?
Yeah. And essentially he's now saying we are 2 years away from being government. Now, I'd intended to go to the conference and look at how much of it wasn't immigration. I wanted to look at what are they saying on health? What are they saying on education? Do they have much beyond inviting an anti-vaccine crank on stage? Do they have much beyond saying net zero is woke? Do they have anything beyond saying we'll get woke out of education? They want to be judged as a party of government, so let's do that. the thing that smaller parties tend to do, the Lib Dems partly, but the Greens in particular, is always say they want more coverage. They would hate to be covered like a viable party of government, because when everyone knows you won't be the next government, no one really bothers kicking apart your policies. And none of these things tend to add up. The Lib Dems sort of do a little bit, but not really. The Greens' last manifesto was completely insane and wouldn't have worked at all. But there's no point saying that, because everyone knows they won't have to do it. Now, UKIP was always one of those parties where they weren't going to be the government, so it didn't matter. Reform, it matters. And crucially, it matters how they treat journalists now when they're on the way up. Because if they're willing to shut out critical journalists now, and yes, I'm lefty, yes, I work for a pro-EU newspaper, but I also write for The Spectator, for the Sunday Times, for the Telegraph. These are not radical leftist Marxist newspapers. I write for The Observer, for The Guardian. Like, I am not sort of, an active subscriber to Marxism or a revolutionary communist. I am a mainstream political journalist, and it is absolutely ludicrous for a party that says it's serious about free speech to refuse to credential people like me. It also makes them look like complete cowards. I mean, yes, okay, I'm 6'4" nearly. I'm not exactly an imposing figure.
I mean, having spent many an occasion in your presence, sweetheart.
Yeah. Look, if we had a fight, you would deck me.
Oh, yeah.
You're not that scary.
No, I'm 5 foot tall.
Like, what did they think I could do in the conference? But also, what did they think they could do shutting out? Like, I am still in my 30s, I will stress. I'm not an old man, but I've done journalism for a while. And so to make a point, I went up to Birmingham. They're hosting in the NEC.
Which is a major venue, by the way. It's quite a huge venue for them to be able to fill out and have this conference.
Well, they had one hall in it. They had a very large hall in it.
Yeah, it's
but there was a hall just round the corner that had a VTuber conference.
Right.
And so from my vantage spot, I could see all of these sort of young, pierced, goth, queer, and often genderqueer sort of teenagers looking very puzzled at the reform guys, and vice
that's
versa.
An incredible image that I've got there between the two rooms.
Oh, it was quite pleasing, and I think a lot of them missed it because they weren't where I was. But I basically there's a Wetherspoons just outside the cordon for the reform bit, so I got a table of the Wetherspoons and grabbed people coming in and out. And we also we had someone, a freelancer, go in the hall for us and still attend events. And so between paid and unpaid spies going in the hall, listening to people as they were going in and out and talking to people as they went in and out, we still covered the conference. It's pointless, but it's silly that we had to do that. And I resent having to do that. And I particularly resent them trying to pretend that they care about free speech at all when they act like that. Yeah. I mean, their stance is that I'm going to make them look bad or I'm going to be unfair. And they made my job for me very easy because they made themselves look bad by banning me, because you can't sincerely say they care about free speech and have them ban critical journalists.
I have to say,
I don't need to be unfair. I don't have to say anything dodgy. They did it for me.
Yeah, and also I have to say, I was quite taken aback as this all developed and you started explaining what had happened. Because, they didn't stop The Guardian going in.
No.
They didn't stop, all sorts of other, publications that are very much not reform supporting. It's a very odd position to have taken, particularly, as you say, when you've travelled across the Atlantic to tell everyone how much you love free speech and what free speech is in danger in the UK.
He quoted Voltaire in his opening statement.
Sure, as one does.
At that. And then, I mean, very clearly doubled down and stuck with it as well. And yeah, as you say, the New World, it's independent owned, it's reader owned. It's very much punching down. This isn't him banning the BBC on a statement of principle. He banned the independent outlet, and I think that looks particularly crappy. I mean,
but
our readers have been very good, and we've got some new subscribers as a result of it, and we're very glad of their support as well. So again, I don't think it's done anything good for them, but it is wrong. It is stupid tactically for them, but it is also wrong for parties to do this.
it is wrong. And I want to pick up on another issue that's been going on with reform, because you weren't the first journalist they've lashed out at. There has been issues in local government as well, because for listeners that don't know, my friends in the US, reform swept through at the last local elections and picked up a lot of councillors and took control of a number of councils, significant councils. And they've had bust-ups with the local media as well, haven't they, banning some of them?
They have, yes. And this is Nottinghamshire is really where the issue's been. And their local outlet has essentially been banned from going to any council events, from approaching any councillors, from getting any kind of communication. And most areas now, if they've got one local paper left that does any council or watchdog journalism, they're lucky. Mm-hmm. Almost nowhere's got two. Most places don't even have one. And so a lack of engagement with a local newspaper is just incredibly bad for democracy in the region, is incredibly bad for accountability. And again, it's just not really acceptable when you are running public services worth tens or hundreds of millions.
I mean, Nottinghamshire is not a small little dot on the map.
No, and again, they're trying to come up with various excuses. They're trying to say it's about a particular journalist, etc. There's always an excuse, and in this case, they're nonsense. They are just not remotely living up to something that they've chosen to make one of their central values. And they need to be careful on this as well, because they made the very questionable decision to put Lucy Connolly on stage at their party conference.
Yes.
And they can say that that's about free speech and it's not about her very extreme views. And you can agree or disagree with her sentence, but she was very, very clearly legally advised that pleading guilty would mean going to jail, and she pled guilty. And the wording of the tweet is not ambiguous. She said they could
I don't
burn
want to
down.
get too down this rabbit hole.
She can, but essentially, you can say that the sentence was right or wrong. I think almost everyone would say the views in the post were repellent, and if you are posting on free speech, you can say, well, we had her on stage as a free speech issue. If it starts to look like you don't really care very much about free speech, if you're banning local journalists from covering your councils, if you're banning journalists from doing that, people will start to ask, do you care about free speech, or do you support the views that were in that post? And I think they start to get themselves in some very tricky territory on this stuff.
I don't wish to be dismissive of your plight, but in many ways, I'm more offended by what's happened in Nottinghamshire and with the local journalists.
Yes, no, so am I.
With a local, the head of a local council, quite a significant one. I don't know what Nottinghamshire County Council's budget is offhand, but it will be fairly hefty in relative terms. And for someone like that, newly appointed to local government, to start doing that really is very dangerous for local democracy. And, you and I, who write about the media and cover the media and discuss the media a lot, always highlight the plight and the death of local journalism. And for someone to use their political power to contribute to that really is deeply concerning.
Yep, I absolutely agree. I can get around silly bans on events. I think local journalism that's trying to hold a council to account, I've just looked it up, it's 47 million of spending a year. And that's the provider of your local services. It covers very essential services for vulnerable people. It does all sorts of things. That is a real threat. And it's a threat that people are doing while they are taxpayer funded, while they are acting as public servants. And Absolutely. So that is the worst of it. I will agree, but all of it's bad. They shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I want to move on from this, and we need to talk about the new series of Succession. I mean, the story around the Murdochs. But I want to thank our sponsor first. This week's show is sponsored by MacPaw and their fantastic product, Clean My Mac. I'm thrilled they're supporting the show because this is a product I know, love, and that has helped me keep my machines running smoothly for a number of years now. Clean My Mac is your ultimate solution for Mac control and care. Notarized by Apple and meticulously crafted by MacPaw, a leading macOS and iOS software development company. It was featured in the Mac App Store shortlist of the best 25 apps for 2025 and, as I say, is a particular favourite of mine. Clean My Mac has a new cloud cleanup feature that connects to your accounts on iCloud, OneDrive and Google Drive. It scans the clouds to find large space wasters, synced and unsynced files, both in cloud storage and on device. All scanning happens locally, so your data stays very safe. To use this fantastic new feature, all you need is to be logged in on the corresponding service on their desktop application. You can then remove files from your disk or evict them solely from your cloud storage, instantly getting you some free gigabytes. If you change your mind, you can restore the files back. Paying attention to your cloud storage is beneficial both for your mental health and your wallet. So get rid of those files that are weighing you down. Get tidy today. Try 7 days free and use my code ADDITION for 20% off at clnmy.com/The Edition. That is clnmy.com/THEADDITION. Thanks to MacPaw with their product Clean My Mac for supporting this show. Welcome back to the Edition podcast. I'm Charlotte Henry and I'm here with the New World's political editor James Ball. Cue the Succession theme tune. We seem to have a settlement in Murdoch land.
We do indeed. There's essentially when Roops had 2 extra children in his 70s with Wendy Deng, his third wife, there was a mini succession battle then because the 4 older Murdoch children didn't want their future control of the company being diluted.
No.
And so they eventually all agreed to have a trust where they would split it financially 6 ways, but the older 4 children would have the voting control. And this was all agreed. This was fine for decades until basically they kind of all fell out. And also Rupert made it clear that he thought there should be one successor, not a committee of 4. And he also made it clear that that should be Lachlan. And Lachlan tried to sort of split out, buy out his siblings for cheap, and he bid too low. And so they took him to court, and the whole thing turned into this big fight that also started to pretend it had these huge stakes around, does this, James was very critical of Fox News and its relationship with Trump. He seemed to have Elizabeth and Prudence on his side with that. And so there was this big thing on, well, is this about them not wanting to let Lachlan turn Fox News into a Trump mouthpiece, etc.? And I think
there is a bit of politics around that, though. I mean, James has been doing this for a while, been really concerned about Fox News and stepped away and sort of trying to do penitence, hasn't he, with setting up other things and...
Well, he's done a bit of a sackcloth and ashes routine. There's a very long, very good profile from February in The Atlantic. But I do suggest reading that back today, as I have. I've just written on all of this for the iPaper.
Right.
He has just taken $1.1 billion and walked away. And so,
all right for some.
Yes. And so essentially Lachlan has won. He now has all of the controlling shares. It's still got a financial split with Wendy Deng's children. But each of the other Murdoch children walks away with 1.1 billion and absolutely no assurances on output, etc. So I think it was probably good framing and a good way during the case to say that there was high principle at stake. But as ever, it always, with the Murdochs, it comes down to money, and it's come down to money here.
I mean, it's all quite bizarre. I find this whole thing bizarre because you're talking about, I mean, essentially these are kids arguing in court about their dad dying.
Yes.
It's like...
very, very publicly about their dad dying. I mean, he is 93.
94, I think.
But 94. And he has been very personally involved in this case, but
yes.
they're not on speaking terms. This will very much taint it. This is This is the worst kind of family psychodrama. And as you say, usually you have the inheritance battle after dad's dead. But Rupert Murdoch has got to live through and watch this one. But yes, and he is very much alive and kicking. He's down in Westminster this very day.
Yes, there's a committee.
I don't know why he's in Westminster, but he's been seen in Parliament. So
well, I think the heads of the BBC on the day we're talking are at the Culture, Media and Sport Committee. So maybe
yes. But I don't think he was appearing in front because
no,
that
but
would
you know
be
he
bad
likes that. We know he likes that committee. So
he does. He had the most humble day of his life there.
Stop it. But there is something fascinating about how this will all play out. Well, first of all, I think the fact that it's happening while Rupert is still very much alive and, compos mentis as we understand it and all the rest of it, really underlines his absolute control freakery.
Yes. I mean, he bought out his own siblings when his father died. Rupert was one of 4 children. I think he's the only living one now. But his dad had a small Australian newspaper empire. Can you call it an empire when it's small?
He started with just one paper, didn't he, Rupert?
Yeah, I think there were a couple at that point. But he essentially got total control over what he had, got rid of the siblings, and then built from it. And it does suggest that he doesn't trust Lachlan's ability to do that after he dies. And so he's essentially engineered the same thing happening for, the final successor, assuming there isn't some last-minute twist in all of this. There's still time. But as it stands, it seems that Rupert's had to do this for Lachlan, which probably isn't the most edifying look. It doesn't necessarily suggest that Lachlan will take what he gets, which is a much, much smaller business than it was 10 years ago as well.
Well, that's absolutely right, because Rupert very astutely has cashed in on all the assets pretty much at the right time.
Yeah, he sold off the movie studio to Disney at a very good time. It was a good time to consolidate that out. He doesn't own Sky anymore in the UK. That's gone to Comcast. And so we are really talking about a big publishing house. They own HarperCollins still.
Yep.
And then the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, the Sunday Times, the Times, the Sun. And the Sun is not the asset that it once was. The Times and Sunday Times are still profitable. They are still prestigious. The Sun loses money and doesn't have much influence now.
Oh, but, I'm not sure I agree with that.
But they've still got Fox News. Okay, what's the last Sun front page you can remember?
Good point, well made. But
yeah, it is not relevant anymore, and it's not read anymore. I'm not sure.
So just because I can't remember a front page off the top of my head on a Tuesday afternoon,
yeah, I would,
doesn't
I
mean
would
it's not influential.
The Times and the Sunday Times still matter. The New York Post matters a little bit. The Wall Street Journal and Fox News are immensely important. The Sun, I think it's fine while Rupert's alive. I would be very nervous afterwards if I were them. So
you're telling me you don't believe, like, for example, during the general election campaign last year?
Yeah, the Sun doesn't matter.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
I would spend no time on it anymore. YouTube matters.
Yep.
X matters, and I wish it didn't. The Sun, it just doesn't have the numbers anymore. It doesn't have the juice. It can't set the news agenda anymore. I really don't think it matters.
I understand your point about, we used to always be able to remember those big front page stories and, those famous big hit, the Scoopy investigations and the this and the that. I totally accept that. I do still think in Westminster people are worrying about it.
Oh, yes, but people in Westminster are idiots. Right. And also they're all
says
in their...
political editor James Ball.
Yes, I don't necessarily exclude myself. We fuss about all of the wrong things. Most political media matters much, much less than it did. Newspapers matter to the extent that what we write still frames what influencers cover and still frames what broadcasters cover. But our direct influence is dwindling and dwindling and dwindling, and the Sun doesn't really influence even what the BBC's headlines are anymore. I just don't. It's not got the direct audience. It's not got the political clout. It doesn't really try to have it anymore, and it doesn't make money. The Times and the Sunday Times make money. The Sun loses it hand over fist. It is a very difficult property now because it doesn't have the prestige, it doesn't have the money, and I don't think it's got the juice anymore. And 5 years ago, I'd have felt terrified saying that.
Yeah, I mean,
And I
it's
don't.
fascinating. I've got the Sun website up in front of me, and there's a bunch of royal stories, something taking a swing at the BBC, some celebrity stuff. I mean, online, there's no doubt that the Mail is more significant.
Yes, although diminishing now, I think. I
We'll
think
have
the
to do a
Mail
separate-
I think the Mail still matters, but I don't think it's what it used to be.
I
We've gone down a tangent here, but I do think it's an interesting one.
I think it's a great one, and yeah, we can have a discussion about the Mail and paywalls another time. But I think what's happened with the Murdoch empire is, well, first of all, it is typical of what's happening in the media as a whole. A fascinating thing, and I pick up a bit on it in my forthcoming book, Streaming Wars, out on October the 3rd in the UK, out on October 28th in the US. Thank you very much. They've never really done digital, the Murdochs.
No.
Never got
tried
involved in the streaming wars.
They owned MySpace.
They owned MySpace, tried Talk TV here in the UK. They've stuck with very traditional media businesses and done very well from it.
The Wall Street Journal's a good website and a good app, but It's a very niche sort of product. It's not their main area. But yes, otherwise they are analog in a digital world.
But doing well from it.
They are still making money. They still have influence.
There's a bit of a Fox News streaming service, but that's not really what gets people in.
No, but again, they do have to look at it because these all have running clocks. Fox News makes its money from cable carriage fees.
Right.
And that is on its way out. It probably has another 10, 15 years of vast profitability, but almost everything they do is diminishing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that they don't really seem to have a path out of that.
Well, this was why I wanted to get to this, which was, will Lachlan have the answer to that?
Well, he's the chief exec right now, and
yes.
No, he doesn't. Or if he does, he's keeping it so secret that he daren't do it when his dad's alive.
But that was really what my question was.
But I don't think he does. I think if there was a play, he would have managed it somewhere, because what you try and do in these things is you build it in Australia or you build it in the UK. You show that it works and you bring it across to America.
Sure.
That's always been the way of it. And they don't seem to have a play. They don't seem to have a tactic. They've got some very nice media brands and properties. I think there will be a place for the Journal. There will be a place for the Times and Sunday Times for a long time.
Yeah.
They, of course, have this bizarre lawsuit with Trump, but I think they'll win or settle it quite early. Fox News clearly has a lot of juice, but they need plans to keep them relevant for the 21st century, and I'm not sure they really have them.
It's going to be fascinating to see, because I think now that this is settled, I think we're going to see Lachlan, what he wants to do moving forward. I think he will feel now like he has more freedom to do some of the things that are in his head. Or he can certainly use it as an excuse for not having done it before. So I think the next phase of this is going to be very, very interesting as well to watch.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's going to be extremely, extremely interesting times in all areas. But I think he's got no excuses not to set out his stall now.
Yeah.
He is the clear sort of controlling, driving force behind it now. And he needs to demonstrate that.
All I can think of is each different episode of Succession. I'm really sorry. I know it's so trite and obvious to say, but that's all I can think of.
I mean, I've had the theme music going through my head the entire morning.
Exactly, every different episode. James, I'm so pleased that you joined me to unpack all of this. It's been great fun. Where can people keep up with all your work?
So they can look me up in the new world. They can follow my Substack, which is jamesrball.com. I am at that on Blue Sky, or they can just Google me. I tend to be around. I'm hard to miss.
You can't, yeah. 6'4", writes a lot. You'll find him. I'm at Charlotte A. Henry across social media. Of course, if you're listening to this, I hope you are subscribed at theedition.net. It's just a mere 50 quid for the year that gets you 2 newsletters a week with everything in it. And you can feel good about supporting independent media as well. What else do you want? As I say, the book is coming out on October the 3rd, so I hope you will pre-order that. I'll leave some links in the show notes as well. James, thank you once again, and I'll see you all next week.